From London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Good evening and welcome to the Christmas Plank of the Week. It's not quite the same as the other Plank of the Week, it's just got Christmas in front of it. This is what we're fighting for. It is the Plank of the Week, which looks very similar to the Christmas Plank. But let me introduce you to our great panel. As you can hear, my voice is not perhaps what it should be, but it will get there all the way through the show. Amanda Devlin is here, Peter Bleksley is here, Laura Dodsworth is here, and Russell Quirk. Very nice to see you all so well dressed up. I, of course, didn't bring any particular Christmas clothing, so I've got some tinsel around me. We'll see how that goes. Amanda, why don't you kick us off? Who's your first Michelle?
You look so bougie.
Thank you very much. Michelle of the Week. Let's go.
Michelle of the Week. So
Yes.
This is about Boston City Mayor Michelle Wu.
Yeah.
She had got her secretary to send out an email to everyone inviting them to a Christmas party. Sounds great, doesn't it? Unfortunately, they sent it out to the whole of the council, all of these councillors thinking, oh great, we've got a nice Christmas party, let our hair down, have some drinks. But it turned out she only wanted non-white councillors to be at this party. I mean, it's a really bizarre story because 15 minutes later, there was a follow-up email to everyone to say, oh, sorry about that, that was a mistake. Yeah. But not to say, you're welcome anyway. Right. It was just to reinforce that you are not allowed to come. And didn't she call them something really weird, like electeds of colour? Electeds of colour, yes.
Never heard of that before.
And it's this special event they wanted to have, so it excluded more than half of the councillors within this group. I think what it does is just reinforce how divisive it can be to whichever way round racism is. Yeah. And I think there is a problem nowadays where, you know, there's lots of white people who are afraid to exclude, to be divisive.
Just a party for white councillors. How will that go?
But that would never happen, and this is the point. There's so many examples recently. I remember that the journalist at BBC 5 Live, and he had been saying about how he felt like walking into the BBC made him feel isolated because he was of a minority. Yeah. And it would just never happen the other way around. No. And it is dangerous, the fact that you're going to get to a stage where everyone else is saying
idiotic,
this.
Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just call it what it is.
It's racist.
Yeah.
Let's call it what
racist,
it is.
yeah.
You know, when I grew up, we were definitely taught to be colourblind. We were taught you're not supposed to refer to race or see it or divide people like that.
I don't remember
this
being
new
taught
trend
that.
for
You just didn't do it. It wasn't a thing.
No.
You know.
Exactly. And now we're supposed to see everybody according to this external characteristic, their skin colour, and not what actually makes them good employees or good people to work with. It's racist.
We are seeing colour more and more. It's not going. It's going the opposite way.
Because there's a huge part of the commentariat now, particularly, in fact, exclusively on the left and in social media and in the media, that turn everything into a race issue, a race incident. This identity politics.
It is mad, isn't it?
Culture wars rubbish, where everything has to be turned into something of race. And actually, rather than it being a matter of then equality and it's somehow, you know, achieving the aim, which is that we're all kind of, you know, we're all equal, as indeed we are. What it actually does is to cause even more division. The fact that we're talking about this divisive stuff frequently and constantly.
It sets us back, and we then get worried.
Have a look at what Fox News made of it.
Wu shared a picture of her dinner for the electeds of colour, and it looked lame. I don't think the uninvited whites missed out on much. But still, if the electeds of colour were made to suffer, then the uninvited whites should have suffered too. Whites and blacks must suffer together at rotten Christmas parties.
I mean, I think that's what you've got to do. You've got to laugh about it. You can't take it too seriously. It is ridiculous. It is, if you let it take you over, a bit dangerous. But it's actually, at the end of the day, she's an idiot. And she's also an Asian American. You know, Michelle Wu. So she's got sort of, you know, Southeast Asian heritage. I don't know whether she calls herself an elected of colour or not. Does she? I suppose she does.
Yeah, I think she was invited to the party.
Sorry, Peter.
If
it's snowing, by the way.
If I'd been a DJ at that party, which of course I wouldn't have been because I'm white, I would have been tempted to play White Christmas.
I think
that would have been a good move. Obviously, that would have been banned.
We should have
right out the door.
An exclusive divisive party after the show. You can only come if you're wearing tinsel. You can't come, there's no tinsel. So it's a tinsel party.
I think you've got enough on to make up for all of us.
Here we go. You're in the party.
We've only just started the show. Peter, what's your first nomination? It's Michelle, isn't it?
Well, we all like a good moan, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah, but I've got a bad moan for us.
Go on.
Michelle Moan, formerly of the House of Lords, because she's taken a leave of absence, because she's been rumbled.
Formerly of Ultimo Bras, that's where I know her from.
Yes, well, I'll leave.
I'm not making that up. I used to know her in Scotland when she was, just an ordinary, sort of entrepreneur who'd done rather well for herself from the East End of Glasgow.
Yeah.
She liked to drink.
Yeah, so there she goes. She gets into the House of Lords and through a company, apparently, called MedPro.
Yes.
They get a huge PPE contract during the pandemic.
Yeah.
She denies that she's anything to do with MedPro.
Right.
She employs expensive lawyers to help her with her denials.
Yes.
And then suddenly she does an interview with Laura Koonsberg
What was she
from the
thinking?
BBC.
What was she thinking?
And she admits that actually she does stand to benefit from a huge amount of money that MedPro may have made from this contract. So she readily admitted that she is a liar.
But hang on, because she said that's okay. It's all right to be a liar because that was to protect her family. So it doesn't make it a bad thing. So as long as you're lying to protect your family, that's okay, isn't it?
But how utterly naive. She lies to the media and thinks that the media, who clearly know what's going on, are just going to roll over and let it lie.
Yeah, that's fine then, Michelle.
I found that so dangerous, though, because saying you're lying to the media, well, we are, as journalists, we are there to make sure that we are holding people to account. And so if we're asking you a question, we know that you've done something wrong and you're denying it.
But Pete,
she's not lying to the media, she's just lying.
You are lying. You are lying to everyone.
Is she mainly a plank for doing the interview, though? So not just for putting herself in a position where she allegedly abused her position and she lied and she's admitted lying. But fancy doing the interview.
Yeah.
I tweeted, not that I know her, to be honest, don't do this. This is Prince Andrew-esque.
It is.
Right?
It was actually worse than
I expected her to sit there in front of Laura Koonsberg and say, oh, and by the way, I don't sweat.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, let's have a look. We've got a clip, I think.
I don't have that money and my kids don't have that money.
The beneficiaries of that trust, where half of the profit went, are you and your children.
And Doug's children,
and my children
too.
For the benefit of all my family.
I'm his wife, so I'm a beneficiary as well as his children.
I really would like to thank her husband, Doug Barrowman, for taking part in that interview because this week it means I'm not the fattest bloke on telly.
Yeah. So, also, could he not? I mean, I shouldn't speak really about it, but I mean, his shirt was literally bursting, wasn't it?
See, Laura Koonsberg should have worn safety glasses because if one of them had popped it, had taken her eye out.
I mean, wouldn't you have said if you were her PR, wear like either a darker shirt maybe or a shirt that's a bit bigger, so it doesn't look like your guts are straining to get out of it.
Loves a pie.
He certainly does. Scotch pie. Those ones that you get that are made of lamb and they've got brown, really good.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we know what they spent the money on.
Laura, have you got another Michelle for us? Or have you got somebody else?
I don't have a Michelle, but look, it wouldn't be Plank of the Week without a Sadiq Khan nomination. So I am bringing
Plank
you
of the Year's
Sadiq
coming
Khan.
soon. I think he's got a pretty good chance of winning it.
Well, he's got a good chance every week, hasn't he? Let's be honest.
Yes.
This week, I'm putting him forward for environmental cognitive dissonance and rank hypocrisy.
Oh, great.
The Telegraph has reported...
Explain that to
I'm from Essex.
Yeah.
Well, basically for being an eco-hypocrite. Because the Telegraph's reported that he received United Airlines flights for he and his entourage, which weren't declared properly through the gifts and sponsorship accounts.
I thought it was
at City
not
Hall.
quite flights. I don't want to correct you, but I think it was upgrades, wasn't it? Business class tickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Business
only
class
paid taxes and fees there. They didn't pay for the flights. So I think he's contesting some of the claims. But I'm just saying what the Telegraph reported. Effectively, he's not being honest, completely honest about the benefits
So he can't, not being honest.
Yeah, and there's three big things wrong with this. First of all, he's not really being transparent about the nature of this basically de facto sponsorship deal. Secondly, he's a man who's opposed the expansion of Heathrow Airport, and he's quite happy to be, him and his entourage hopping on and off all the United Airlines flights and bleating on about how many flights they take
isn't it interesting
from Heathrow.
that even though he denies that there was any deal done, that there's a tweet apparently that he put out where he's got a United Airlines plane in the background saying, isn't it great that they now fly 22 times a day out of Heathrow?
Yeah. It's blatant
it's good.
sponsorship.
It's nice PR for them if they didn't give anything for it.
It was ultra promotional.
Yeah. So, and then the third thing that's really wrong with it is I just want to draw your attention to the fact that he is the chair of this group called the C40 Cities Group.
Oh, yes.
And so all of the cities under this
umbrella...
Cities, I think.
Okay.
Don't make me go
50-50.
there. Don't make me go there. So all of the cities under this umbrella have ambitious environmental targets. Now, one of them, hold on to your hats, your Christmas hats. One of them is that the citizens of the cities should only be taking one short haul flight every 3 years.
Right.
I'll repeat that for you. One short haul flight every 3 years.
Right.
That is what Sadiq Khan wants for Londoners.
How'd you get home then?
No, a short.
That's a good. That's good. I like that. Yeah, he's right.
It's a return flight.
That'd be 2 flights then.
So don't they also want to ban meat?
They do want to ban meat. So the thing is,
You can only have that once every 3 months as well.
you've got this guy who,
While you're on the plane.
he'll get on flights to go to, chat about the environment with other mayors, but he doesn't want the Londoners in his own city to take more than one little flight every 3 years. You know, he's obviously famous for his 3-car convoy for walking the dog. He used to drive a Land Rover to work.
Yeah.
The man's a huge hypocrite.
Of course he
and
is.
it's one rule for him and a different rule for Londoners.
Yeah, shocking, absolutely shocking. Very good nomination, though. Russell, who's your first one?
Well, yeah, I think as a close contender to Plank of the Year,
Would you
I
like some
might say.
tinsel, by the way? You look a bit unadorned.
No, I think I'm okay. Like
look
this,
good.
really. But, although you have got something to spare there, Mike.
You've got plenty here.
Looks like it's strangling you.
Get round my neck.
Looks like something out of Doctor Who, the tinsel monster, doesn't it?
Well, I'm transitioning into, a tinsel person.
You could be whoever you want these days. You can be whoever you want.
can.
So, yeah, as a contender against Sadiq Khan, I think, Laura Sadiq Khan, is the BBC, who obviously is no stranger to this programme. And it's for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
One, because of the absolutely dire and disgraceful BBC Christmas schedule, yet again.
Yeah.
Do you remember the old days of it would be either a Vicar of Dibley special that we'd all look forward to, or Only Fools and Horses,
Somebody would die
Gavin
in
and
EastEnders.
Stacey? Yeah. So let me give you an idea of what they've got lined up for Christmas Day. So The King's Speech, which obviously is obligatory. Toy Story 4, which is about a 4-year-old film, which we've all seen at the cinema or on Netflix 500 times. Strictly Come Dancing, which is on every Saturday anyway.
Right.
Doctor Who, which is on every Saturday anyway. Michael McIntyre's The Wheel, which is on every Saturday anyway. Ghosts, which is on every week. Call the Midwife, and yes, EastEnders. There's nothing special in there whatsoever. So the obvious question is, why? Why on earth is it so boring, bland and dire when Christmas Day, of all things, you should be able to expect the BBC to excel at? But I also nominate them for what they've also decided to do in the wake of the whole Gary Lineker thing.
Yeah.
Instead of firing Gary Lineker and saving 1.2 million quid, they've cut out A Question of Sport, which is an institution. And, whether you actually think it's brilliant or not, fancy cutting that instead of the man that makes no difference to viewing figures whatsoever on Match Today on a Saturday night, Gary Lineker.
Well, he could also be seen this week, couldn't he, on Sports Personality of the Year, which is their latest blunder, where they've managed to sort of make it as woke as possible. Moved it from a Sunday night to a Tuesday, and had a sort of cast of thousands. And for the second year in a row, they've given it to a women's footballer.
Yes.
Which is all very well.
There were some other
surely you're telling me there aren't any better contenders
some
than
other
that?
quite worthy contenders. And of course, look, the women's football team are great and they have done great things. But I'm afraid, not this year.
Yeah.
They didn't win anything.
They didn't win anything.
They didn't win anything this year. So anyway, the BBC for a whole bunch of different reasons. So I think that's up there.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, we've got an advert from a little while ago for you, for the BBC. This is a Radio Times advert, I think.
See how much fun you can have with a special bumper Christmas Radio Times.
How about a nice pair of earrings?
I think it's gone to my head.
How's about nothing? It's a cracker.
It's definitely everybody's Christmas #1.
It's the only way you can find what everyone's up to.
It's unbeatable.
Yeah, now, some people would call that the good old days, but obviously, with certain...
maybe with one exception.
With certain exceptions. But that was when they'd get 20 million audience for all sorts of things. But
it was worth...
Christmas was an event. But is it not better, though, Russell, for them not to be wasting our money on making a load of Christmas specials that we would only moan about if they did them? Because they'd be so bloody woke anyway.
But if they can't get Christmas right as a traditional thing, where you rely on the BBC on one day of the year, one day alone, if you can't rely on them to do that, what's the point of the BBC?
Well, they'll probably cancel Christmas soon because they'll decide that actually it might be offensive to some people, and it'll be the holiday schedule.
Maybe that's what this is. It's like a subtle segue into Winterval.
You think it's running back?
Yeah, maybe.
I think they're making that switch step, aren't they? But I mean, again, because we've got Plank of the Year coming up, the BBC will definitely be a nominee. They've got everything wrong this year. I can't think of anything the BBC have got right. From covering the Hamas situation wrongly, from Jeremy Bowen saying wrongly that Israel had bombed a hospital and then saying he didn't regret it.
Yeah. Newscasters sticking their middle finger up at the audience on the day that they increased
Although actually,
their
having seen the final version of that, it's actually not that bad in the end.
It's still bad.
It's still a bit stupid.
Unfortunate timing.
Climate hysteria all summer.
The climate hysteria also, we've forgotten about that. Well, this is it. I mean, as we look at how we do the Plank of the Year thing, there's so many BBC things that they've screwed up.
Yeah.
That you kind of think, how can they even survive? And even just looking at some of those people there, apart from obviously Mr. Savile, they were all kind of family favourites. They were people that everyone loved to watch. It was funny. It was kind of, it felt like it was your TV channel.
Yeah.
The BBC does still do some quite good dramas.
Do they?
That's the only thing that I would say.
Well,
Happy Valley was one of the
Valley,
top.
that was
That's
like
ancient,
3 years ago.
No.
4 years ago.
Happy Valley was it was its final series, which was in February, March this year, and that's one of the top watch shows. of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I'm not convinced. I mean,
But you can count them on one hand over the last 5 or 10 years, can't you?
Yeah.
The really good stuff that they've done that was kind of, out there, big production, where they've really pushed the boat out. But literally on one hand.
Yeah.
And that's not what we expect from an organisation that's got an income of, what, 7 billion quid?
Well, considering how many people work
stuff.
there, their output is actually getting lower and slower and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
I mean, by this time
and they're
next
still
year,
spending £1 million a year on diversity officers, of course.
Yeah, for God's sake. Anyway, listen, my voice is getting better, so that's good news. I might have to take some of this off, though, just start to irritate my chin. But this is Christmas Plank of the Week. We'll be back with more after this, including a bloke who thinks he's a woman. Welcome back to the Christmas Plank of the Week. We've already got it well underway. We've got 3 nominations, I should say, can't count. It's now time for me to bring you my first one of the Christmas Plank of the Week, and it is Eddie Izzard. Now, I'm not sure what to call Eddie Izzard, because he's got a couple of names,
Yes,
hasn't he?
you are.
Can you call him him?
Well, I call him he, because as he's Eddie. But I mean, if he changes his name sometimes when because he says, doesn't he, that sometimes he dresses as a woman and he's a woman, other times he doesn't.
And he's Susie.
And he's is it Susie?
Susie.
Right. So Eddie Izzard, as Eddie Izzard, stood to be the Labour candidate for Brighton because he thought he could make a difference. He wanted to get into the House of Commons. I don't know if it was a women-only shortlist, so I'm not sure whether he qualified on that basis. But he didn't get in, which I just think is hilarious.
Especially
he got so upset, apparently, that he removed all of his tweets about the campaign that he'd been running. This is the old Caroline Lucas seat, the Green Party MP, who's the only person from the Green Party who's ever got into the House of Commons, and she's retiring, apparently. And instead, it was won by some guy from Gomez. Do you remember Gomez, the band? No, you're all looking a bit sort of blankly at me. You know nothing about music, you people. Anyway, he's got a bloke called somebody Gray, Tom Gray, who I suppose it couldn't have been a women-only shortlist unless Tom was also a woman.
Could be identifying.
He could be. I don't know. I just find Eddie Izzard to be a ridiculous character.
Yeah. But isn't it ironic, given that that's Brighton and it's supposed to be a very right-on type of area?
Well, I think he was so sure that he would get it that he thought, well, I'll choose Brighton. He's already tried once before in Sheffield.
Yeah.
Which was maybe not quite such an ambitious...
Did he not get it not because of his kind of flip-flopping between male and female, the whole trans thing as an excuse? Did he not get it just because he's really bloody irritating?
Well, I mean, I think he is quite irritating. I mean, there are certain people in...
And entitled, actually, ironically. Very entitled.
Well, he walks down the street as if he's a woman and thinks he can be a woman, thinks he can be called a woman. Remember, there's a famous picture of him queuing up to go into a women's toilet, which is actually quite weird. But let's have a look at him. We've got him here from when he was on Question Time 7 years ago.
The economic problems of pulling out. We pull out, we are going to go into recession. Brexit is almost an anagram of recession. If you put 2 S's into the word Brexit, it's Brexession. They almost designed it that way.
Yeah. That's like Eddie Izzard is almost an anagram of complete twit. You'd have to put a few other letters in, obviously, but it wouldn't work otherwise. I mean...
This has restored my faith in Brighton, I have to say.
Yeah.
It has, because if he'd got in, I mean, perhaps the people of Brighton don't really care what Laura thinks, but I would have been really depressed if they'd voted for somebody who's this narcissistic. And I know this might sound really judgmental, but I'm not a big fan of preferred pronouns. I think pronouns are based on biological sex, and it's for the person using them to decide what they are. But especially when somebody flip-flops between the gender they want to be and the pronouns they want, it means you're constantly tiptoeing around. Oh, what are you today? What shall I call you today? How am I going to soothe and placate your ego today?
Yes.
So it's really narcissistic and unpleasant.
It's like, what shall I do today? I quite fancy being an MP. And you go, oh, OK, then. And there was a time when you could get sort of parachuted in if you knew enough people. But, I mean, apparently one of the problems for his supporters was that even though he wanted to get the job as the MP, he wasn't going to be able to be there for all of the campaign because he was travelling quite a lot. But he promised that he'd be able to campaign on Zoom.
So he literally...
And you're kind of going, so what, you want to represent the people of Brighton?
So he literally wants the best of all worlds, both in terms of the job and his gender. Doesn't he? What's the best of all worlds?
It's strange, though, because I think a lot of people did actually believe that he was going to win, because even the Green Party, Caroline Lucas was upset at the fact that he was running. They didn't want that clash. So I think that it just shows exactly narcissistic. It was all about him, and it was all about the fact that during that, it would have been him making headlines, him being on TV,
It would have been about him.
It would have, and it wouldn't have been about his constituents. And we need to. That's the point now. We want MPs who are actually there for you.
Maybe the Labour Party membership that voted, or rather didn't vote for him, were also worried about his mental health, frankly.
Well, the thing is, what they say is most people, if they want a new sort of local MPs, they want somebody who knows the place, and it's not just somebody who pops down every Saturday and goes out.
Because they think they can win it.
Yeah, I mean, he said this in March. He basically said, I'm going into politics, I'm going to push and push until I become an MP. I'm just going to carry on. I want to go into it because I can communicate. I have a vision of the future, which is everyone has a right to a fair chance in life.
Well,
that's fine.
all about him.
Yeah, right. And of course, in the BBC report about this, they keep calling him her. Eddie Izzard has failed in her bid to become a Labour candidate.
I really hate that. It's just gaslighting. So well done the people of Brighton.
Yeah.
They want an MP who cares about them. You know, ideally lives there and isn't going to be on Zoom and travelling around the country on acting gigs playing either sex.
Yes.
Also, can you trust someone wearing a beret ever?
I wouldn't vote for anyone wearing a beret.
But Santa hats, very
I would if I was buying onions.
Yeah, or Che Guevara T-shirts or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, here we are. Amanda, you've now got something to do with Newcastle Council.
Yes, this is a really upsetting story, actually. There's been gravestones that have been overturned. And it wasn't because of vandals, it was actually because...
They've been pushed over, effectively.
Pushed over, they're just lying flat on the ground. Yeah. Family members had absolutely no idea what had happened. They turned up, and it turns out that it was not vandals, it was Newcastle Council.
It was the local council,
yeah. And there they are, they've just... I mean, this is sacred, isn't it? Someone goes there to remember the dead, and they've turned up, have no idea what's gone on, they're worrying. They see these posters, and it was just... put to them as a health and safety hazard that they'd gone and done the push test.
Yes.
This is the best thing about it.
Well, they're worried that they're going to fall on people.
They went round, these council, nobodies, and they pushed the grave, and if it slightly wobbled, then it was deemed a health and safety risk.
Can we do that with people now?
I was going to say you could do it with the Newcastle councillors, couldn't you? You could give them a push.
So if they slightly wobble,
and if they
then
fall
we just shove them
over,
over.
you're out.
But presumably, by definition, some of those gravestones have been there for like 150, 200 or more years, and they've stayed up. So why do they think they're going to fall over in the next few minutes then?
Yeah, well, they're not, are they? I mean, it's simple. Somebody's gone around and gone, look, this is a national death trap.
Some health and safety
see what I did there? It's a graveyard. Everyone's dead already, but they're worried that somebody else is going to be killed by... I mean, I don't know who is going to...
Well, councils also have form for this stuff. There's been at least 2 other councils, of course, that have done this with trees, hasn't there?
Yeah.
Recently.
Well, they cut them all down.
I think, they cut them all down in the middle of the night.
That seems a little bit more... That seems like it could,
No, that is awful.
I mean, what happens to just emptying the bins?
Yeah. It's callous.
Can you just do that? Fill some potholes, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Leave the trees alone in the graves.
Oh, yeah, it's so callous.
It's really
awful.
callous to do it. And also, it's really looking for a problem where no problem exists.
Right.
Because, we don't have this massive graveyard injury epidemic in the country. When was the last time you went into a graveyard and you lost a limb because a gravestone fell on the foot?
I mean, you haven't seen it.
So they're employing too many... I don't know what kind of job title Dodsworth does this, but they're employing too many people if they've got time to go and wobble gravestones.
Yeah. I mean, I can't remember the last time I heard anyone from the local A&E in Newcastle saying it's really terrible. There's so many people coming in now. They've had gravestones
every
fall
day.
on them.
Every day it's happening.
So thousands of them.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember Cheryl Tweedy.
I do. Cheryl Cole.
Cheryl something
Cheryl.
else. There was
At
another,
times
but
it was
she's
just
now.
Cheryl.
I know, but that's like as if she's Cher. And she's not of Cher kind of stature. But anyway, Cheryl. Her grandparents. Both of their gravestones were found lying down, and her uncle, Cheryl's uncle, claimed that the family had had no warning or anything, and they've been told that it will be £250 per gravestone to fix. So why are people in Newcastle paying for someone in the council to walk around and push a gravestone to see if that's if that's safe or not,
but not paying to reinstate them
and then give this bill over to the family members who have already paid. I mean, gravestones are expensive.
They are.
So to have forked out all of that money and then later down the line have to pay £250 per
And also, they don't just give you a
ridiculous.
gravestone, do they? I mean, they don't just you don't go and get the gravestone in a trolley in a garden centre and then push it to the cemetery and sort of put it there. Somebody does it for you.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a professional. The funeral director will do it or something, presumably.
I'm glad to see that inclusion and diversity includes the dead.
Yeah, because a lot of times they forget about the dead.
Yeah.
Upsetting them.
They're much underrepresented.
Yeah.
They're not being left out.
Black dead people.
Well, you wonder whether the diversity in the cemetery will have to be looked at.
And gay dead people.
Yeah, you might have to mix it all up a bit.
And transgender dead people.
Thank
They're
you.
all massively underrepresented.
Ever since you've been in that snow, you've gone Listen, and now it's your turn anyway. West Mercia Police for you, Mr. Bleksley.
West Mercia Police have got themselves a bit of criticism this week because Rachel McLean, who is Deputy Chair of the Conservative Party with the brief for women, so a fairly important role, I would suggest, had an allegation made against her because she reposted a tweet that was on social media about some person who used to be a fella,
right,
who now identifies as a woman,
right,
and Rachel McLean's posting that she reposted said that this fella is a bloke in a wig.
Yes.
And the bloke in the wig, as described, got awfully upset about this.
Of course.
Complained to the police, because what are you going to do when you get a bit upset about what somebody says on social media? You pick up the phone and ring the old bill.
Yeah.
No, you don't. But this...
Did anybody answer?
This person
Normally they
did.
don't pick it up.
They did.
Did they?
They did. West Mercia formed a squad.
Right.
Well, they applied some resources to it, and they informed Rachel McLean that the incident has been recorded as a non-crime hate incident.
Excellent.
So there you go.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what is that?
Actually, there's a bit of a sinister side to this. Because if you had...
I thought they'd been told not to do that anymore.
They have been told not to do that.
But you see, they're not listening. Because if you do that, it can actually affect future job applications. It does have some implications. I mean, if it's non-crime, what are the police doing about it?
Yeah.
Now, being the sort of old school detective that I am...
Is that your warrant card?
I did a bit of research.
You've done some investigation.
Yeah.
I did a bit of research into West Mercia Police.
Oh, yeah.
And their most recent inspection by His Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary, guess what requires improvement in West Mercia Police? Investigating crime.
Yeah.
It's pretty 101.
Responding to the public.
Right.
And good use of resources.
So basically being...
Which I think this case...
basically being
But Laura's point about the fact that this was supposedly done away with, because I thought the College of Policing had given out this instruction to all police organisations in the country, but then it had been reversed and they'd been told you mustn't do this anymore because you can't be collecting data on people who don't know you're collecting it on them.
Yep.
Because basically there could be non-crime hate incidents against everyone here, but you don't get told by anyone, right?
Can you imagine in a football stadium where there's thousands of us singing about, we hate Nottingham Forest or whatever.
Right.
You know, what are they going to do? Record that as a non-crime hate incident?
Well, they might.
And there'd be thousands of us singing it.
They weren't going away. They stayed on your record, I think, pretty much forever.
Right.
You know, and there was no decent way to tackle these things. I mean, it's a disgraceful thing to do to somebody. I mean, there are young people who've had them. You know, that's your life blighted in a sense if it's following you around
Is it
on a record.
like, you know how Nigel Farage got his banking records? Can you go to the police and say, I'd like to know if you've got any of this stuff on me?
Yes.
Can I see my record, what you have?
Perhaps we should all check if we've committed any
I never say anything that upsets anyone, so I'm probably fine.
You're probably there's
I'm
nothing
probably
on your record.
I would think so,
And I don't suppose anywhere there's a picture of this person that the statement was made against, because I've got a picture of that person in my head if it's the same person. And the fact that someone said it's a geezer in a wig was a point well made, I think.
Well, what I would say is I've seen pictures of this person. I've seen pictures of him as a man, and he wouldn't win Mr. Universe. And I've seen
Is this the
pictures
guy with
of
the
him.
glasses and the blonde wig?
And the blonde bob.
Yeah. See, over the weekend,
colour wigs.
people were saying they thought that was me. They said, like my friend, in drag.
Michelle, another Michelle.
Yeah, and I said, no. I'm sorry, I can own up. This is definitely not me. I'd never wear a blonde wig.
Did you have to defend yourself on Twitter?
I did, yeah. Loads of people were like taking the mickey going, it must be Mike Graham.
Michelle Graham.
But you see, my defence to anything when anybody accuses me of saying anything hateful is like, nobody believes a word I say because they know I'm an idiot. Because I'm the thickest man on the internet, according to the internet. So, you know, that's my defence.
Yeah.
Oh, what does the internet know?
Feel free to argue about it. You know, they're all just going, yeah, we're fine with that.
What does the internet know?
No problem. Now, we've got a clip here from the West Mercia Police. Apparently, one of the things they did recently was the Running Man Challenge. This is what West Mercia Police do. Presumably this is on their way to a drugs bust. They're just sort of limbering up to make sure that they don't pull any muscles while they're breaking into somebody's house. What are they doing? And what's that thing in the middle? Is that like an animal? Is it an animal? Who's that?
Don't misgender or miss-species,
It's a
whatever
dog.
it is. Be careful.
And Peter, you're saying this
is that the boss?
This is the same police force that is that basically is a consequence of their investigation.
What has happened to the police in this country?
Yeah, but this is where the Inspector of Constabulary is saying that they can't catch criminals. They need to use better resources. And they're not responding.
Maybe
to
that's because
the
you're
public.
dressed like a dog.
Well, yeah, that sums it up.
K9 unit means you actually have dogs. You don't dress
the
up.
video sums it up while they're so ineffectual, doesn't it?
You're raising Peter's blood pressure before Christmas. I don't know.
Oh, hang on.
Would you stop doing that? You know, it gets us all in terrible trouble. Anyway, coming up next, we're going to go north of the border with Laura. Russell is going to go across the channel, multinational show this, and then I'm going to go back to a place where you can talk to lampposts, did you believe? This is Plank of the Week. Welcome back to the Christmas Plank of the Week. As you can see, we're all festooned with a very festive look. We've got the same Plank of the Week that we always have, though. It was supposed to say Christmas Plank of the Week. There's the noise. Come on, guys. Where's the noise? I mean,
It's Christmas, they're all drunk.
yeah, they've all been at the Glühwein, the mulled wine. This is what happens. Why have we got any mulled wine, by the way? Laura Dodsworth, down to you.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going a bit serious after the last ones.
Okay.
Taxes. I'm nominating Humsey Useless.
Why not?
And the entire Scottish government.
Yeah.
Because they are adding new tax brackets with a higher rate of income tax in a move that they say is progressive, but I say is punitive. That's not all they're doing as well. You know, they're making changes to dividend relief, business rates. Now, they say it's progressive to add extra tax rates because only the wealthier pay more tax, as though, you know, we're not supposed to care about the wealthy fat cats. We don't care about them. But it actually affects people at not that high rates of income.
Yeah.
So if you earn 50,000, which is above the national average, but you know, you're not in seriously wealthy territory.
No.
If you earn 50,000 in Scotland, you will be paying £1,500 more income tax than if you live in England. Now, if you're earning 110,000, it's about £4,000 difference. So what they're really going to do is say to talented people, high earners, Scotland's not the place for you because you have to pay more money to live here.
Right.
It's going to make Scotland really uncompetitive and not attractive as a place for talented people to go to live. But there's also something quite disingenuous about what they're saying, because it's not just the high earners that are affected. They're not bringing up their lowest rate, their lowest tax band. That's going to stay at 12,570, which means because of inflation, due to a process called fiscal drag, everyone's paying more tax.
Tens of thousands of people.
They're taxing them to the hilt in Scotland.
Also, is it not right to say that some people, if you're making something like above 90,000, your marginal rate of tax is 74% under this new system?
Yeah, and actually even worse, if you've got a student loan in Scotland and you're on 100 grand plus, you're paying something like 80% marginal rate.
Yeah, it goes into over 80% if you're repaying a student loan. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, it's not really an incentive to work or to be a high earner or to set up a business there.
You'll end up with the brain drain that we saw in England in the 1970s, where all of the talent, you know, all of those that are earning money and employing people and paying tax simply go elsewhere.
Exactly.
It's really
Although, funnily enough, I read a
policy.
piece this week which said that most of the people making that kind of money, certainly making more than six figures, are working in the public sector in Scotland.
Yeah, they're probably SME politicians.
Yeah, they're all the civil service.
The civil service.
I was up there when they opened the Scottish Parliament, which was delivered several years too late and 10 times over budget. Right. One of my favourite things that they did was they built this bizarre-looking building, which is quite nice inside, but it looks really odd. And they had to get some windows specially made, and all the windows arrived at a huge cost. There was something like, you know, £10,000 each, and they were all the wrong size, and none of them fitted. So they had to go away again and make them all again. And so, but they also created this huge civil service office down in Leith, which housed 3,000 civil servants, which until that moment hadn't existed. So they literally created an incredible black hole of money for the public sector to pay for taxpayers to pay for. And what they've done since they've been in charge all this time is just run up debt after debt after debt, because they haven't got enough people who actually make money who are not in the public sector. So they can't fund all the stuff that they've got.
They're not going to attract them now either. Scotland becomes more and more unattractive as a place to live. And that's a really sad thing to say.
There's always the weather.
Oh, there's always the darkness and the weather. But no, Scotland...
Well, and the life expectancy being about 50.
Scotland's beautiful. It's just that its government's ruining it.
It isn't great. Russell, sorry, before we do that, I've forgotten. We have to show the usual video, which is Humsey Yusuf, just before he made this policy, on his way into the chamber in the Scottish Parliament.
It never gets old.
It never gets old,
does it? It never gets old.
It's brilliant.
I love this.
Here he goes.
Here we go. Oh.
I mean, some people might think that's a bit cruel, but it is Christmas after all.
But if ever there's a demonstration of how ridiculous and stupid and incompetent
Yeah.
the SNP government are is there in about 2 seconds.
It's literally,
that
I mean,
sums the whole government.
It's like Theresa May, isn't it? You know, the stuff falling off the wall behind her. You just go, that's your government. That's
very,
it.
Very indicative.
Indeed.
So mine is...
Take us to continental France.
Yeah, mine's a bit novel. So mine is Miss France.
Yes.
And I don't mean the individual. Gilles Yves is her name, but I mean the competition. So in the last few days, there has been the Miss France competition. The vote was left open to the public, and the public decided that they would put the contenders in a particular order.
Yeah.
So somebody won, and then there was somebody else in second place, and Miss Gilles Yves was placed in third place.
Yeah.
Now, and I'm hoping that we've got a picture of her here, there is Gilles
There she
Yves,
is.
looking, if I might
Beautiful.
say, beautiful, but has short hair.
Yeah.
Shock horror. Boyish, some would
C'est
say.
la vie.
But came third
Yeah.
by way of the public vote. The all-female woke panel of judges overruled the public and said, no, we want that person to be placed first for the promotion of diversity. So if ever
the short-haired
there was-
person?
The short-haired person.
What's that got to do with diversity?
Well, because I guess the convention is in these beauty pageants, and I know Pete's an expert on these, having watched them over and over and over again, as I'm sure he has. But the convention is long hair, a particular type of figure, and so on.
Really?
And you can scream misogyny all you like.
I
but
didn't even know they
that's the
did these kind
reality.
of competitions
Yeah,
anymore.
so now they have overruled the public vote, and effectively, I guess you could say the woke minority have overruled the silent majority and decided that despite the wishes of the French public in terms of who they think should be Miss France, they put their own one in place because she looks a bit different.
Right. Well, she doesn't look different, though. I mean, I remember, you guys are probably not old enough to remember, Peter might be. Do you remember Mireille Mathieu?
Yeah.
Who was a French sort of sex goddess, I think. She was a singer or something. Had very short hair, very straight, a bit like Audrey Hepburn. You know, have they never seen a woman with short hair before?
Short hair can be so sexy.
Yeah, of course.
Of course, it's not diversity. But if they're not careful, if they go too far down the diversity route, they're going to do a Victoria's Secret and then end up having to U-turn. Do you remember Victoria's Secret started featuring not conventionally attractive women, let's say.
Yes.
And it didn't work out very well for their sales. Of course, their stuff's not as good quality as it used to be either. But, you know, they've gone back to using more conventionally attractive models, haven't they?
What we really need to know is, does she want to strive for world peace, though?
Yeah, well, let's have a look.
Does she like animals?
We've got a clip of the Miss France episode right here.
Miss France 2024 est et restera Miss Nord-Pas-de-Calais.
Eve Gilles, l'étudiante en mathématiques.
Do you know what's funny? Only the French, only the French would think that's diversity. But that's a sign of how far woke has not gone in France. They think that's
here's my joke of the
diversity.
hour. The French are revolting. I mean, they really are revolting at this.
Absolutely.
Sacre bleu all over the shop, apparently. They are absolutely outraged.
Yeah. Do they still do Miss World? Is that still a thing?
Didn't it go bust? Didn't Trump have something to do with it? It went bust, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I think so.
That's how he went to Russia.
Yeah, but it's not the done thing anymore, is it? Really,
No.
in this world.
No. You can't be
objectifying
you can't
women,
be,
and you get a lot of men doing it. I suppose.
So if you want to
as
objectify women, go to France.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only if they've got short hair, though.
Yeah, but we're not in the EU anymore, so we're going to have to queue up a long time to get in. Don't worry, though, because there's a lot of women with short hair there. So
You could enter Miss World with your blonde wig.
I could. Yeah, maybe I should do
Michelle
that.
Graham.
And your tinsel.
Back to Michelle. Is that music telling me that we have to move on? My goodness me, we're almost at the end of the show. Coming up next, though, I'm going to go, and I like this. I came up with this the other night. It's to the home of jute, jam, and junkies. Guess where that is? We are back, and it is, of course, the Christmas tinsel edition of Christmas Plank of the Week. If I do that, it keeps moving, this thing. It's like it's alive. Is it alive? Anyway, welcome to the Christmas Plank of the Week. We've had some great ones. We've had Miss France, Humsey Useless, Michelle Moan, Michelle Wu, Sadiq Khan, the BBC, West Mercia Police, Eddie Izzard, Newcastle Council. I'm going to go back north of the border for mine, which is actually Dundee Council, because they have instituted one of the most ridiculous things I think I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of ridiculous things in councils. You know how everybody's really keen on climate change, and they like to push it into every conversation. Well, up in Dundee, where, as I say, I wasn't joking, they're famous for jute, which is where all these jute millionaires came from years and years ago when Scotland was a big trader of such things. Jam, which is where the jam is made, lots of jam is made there. The Bash Street Kids was made there as well, because you've got the you know, is it DC Comics, who are based up in Dundee. But they've also got the biggest number of junkies in Scotland as well, because heroin's a terrible problem up in Scotland, thanks to the SNP.
Particularly in Nicola Sturgeon's constituency.
Well, that's back in Glasgow, yeah, but it's really bad in Dundee as well. But you know what they've done? They've decided to open up a dialogue for the ordinary people of Dundee to have about climate change. But what they've suggested they do is talk to, wait for it, lampposts.
Sorry?
Lampposts, yes.
Poles with lampposts.
Lampposts, yeah. Well, not just lampposts, fences as well, and occasionally the odd bus stop. They've decided to use some AI to... Bleksley looks like he's about to fall over and faint with horror. Yeah, you better stop that snow. The point is that they've said they've got some AI voices embedded into a speaker, into a lamppost. So if you start talking to a lamppost, it will talk back to you. But it won't just talk back to you about how the day's going or whether you can see any heroin addicts. It will say, let's have a conversation about climate change. And they've actually spent money on this.
What utter lunacy.
I mean, it is incredible.
Are the drugs being done within Dundee Council?
Well,
come
I
up
mean,
with such
you do wonder.
things?
I mean, if you see people talking to a lamppost, normally you think that guy's off his face. You know, what's he doing talking to the lamppost? But they've actually instituted all around the centre of Dundee this thing that they want to call it a dialogue that people can have just when you went for a bus.
Which must look really normal, mustn't it?
Yeah.
Really
So sad. Why are people ruining
so sad
Scotland? I mean, I'm from Scotland.
Are you?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
I
thought Devlin was an Irish name, as in Bernadette
Well,
Devlin.
I think I've just moved around a lot.
Oh,
But
okay.
yeah, born in Scotland. My whole family are from there. They'll be watching this. They won't be very happy to
No, they're not
be
from
hearing
Dundee,
all
are
of
they?
this. Not from Dundee.
Yeah.
They're in Glasgow though, so
Yeah.
they won't like Hums are useless.
Right.
I know everything that's going
I
on
bet
there,
they
but this
don't
is
like
not.
Hums are
This is
useless.
not a good. This is not a good look for Scotland today with this
No.
episode. This is.
No.
I'm not happy about this.
And I love Scotland as well. I've
I do,
had
of
a
course I love
great
Scotland,
pleasure
but-
going there many, many times.
Yeah.
This is just utter
insane, isn't
abject lunacy, not to mention a waste of council taxpayers' money.
Well, they're
Eight
always
for the
saying, aren't they,
first
these
stuff,
councils,
isn't
that they haven't got any money.
Yeah.
You know, they're going bankrupt all over Britain because
Yeah.
they've spent too much money. But they can find money for this kind of rubbish.
Yeah,
to
to put tech in the lamppost.
And this stuff is tabled by council officers that then it has to go through some kind of democratic process. It'll either go through the cabinet member or it will go to committee and actually get debated and voted on by councillors. Can you imagine that council meeting when they talked about what we want to do, everybody, is to propose that people across the streets of Dundee, just to make themselves feel better about themselves, talk to lampposts. I mean, how on earth did that even get on the agenda, let alone voted?
It's even got a name, though. It's called Hello Lamppost. Now, I'm not joking. That's what it's called.
Original.
Now,
Hang on,
if you're a fan...
I know what this is. This is a spoof plank.
No,
It
it's
isn't
not.
real.
If you're
It
a
isn't
fan
real.
of Simon and Garfunkel, you'll get the references. Hello Lamppost. What you know, and you know that you've got to see the flowers growing. It's a song. I don't remember.
Did
which
they
one it
write
is.
their stuff on drugs as well?
I think they must have done. But how about this? One of the people responsible for this is called Heather Anderson. Do you want to know what her title is in the council?
Chief Lamppost Officer?
Climate, Environment and Biodiversity Convener.
Convener.
Do you know, but there's
Also head of lampposts.
a lot of environmentalism is basically quite misanthropic. People are always the problem. And I can't think of anything that's much more misanthropic than telling people to talk to a lamppost to engage in a dialogue. You can't be in a dialogue with AI. There's only one person involved in it. The other thing is a lamppost with a connection to AI.
Yeah.
It's really sad, actually, to tell people to talk to inanimate objects about a supposedly important policy
Also,
issue.
can you imagine the views that the lamppost would have? I mean, they'd be very woke, wouldn't they? Because you wouldn't be able to say to the lamppost, actually, I don't believe in climate change. What do you make of that?
We have to warn the viewers that if you live anywhere other than Dundee,
Yes.
do not do this,
Right.
because in all likelihood you'll get sectioned.
Talking to a lamppost?
Yeah.
Or a bus stop?
Yeah.
Or what about a fence?
Can you imagine?
If you start talking to a fence outside somebody's house.
Is there not just a little irony
Yeah.
as well on the basis that this is lampposts talking about climate change, but lampposts are lights that
Yes.
presumably use an element of fossil fuel?
They may well do.
So there is a hypocrisy built
Yes.
in.
I don't know whether they've changed the lights to LEDs
Solar,
or
maybe.
solar panelled lights or something.
It's still
I don't
bloody
know.
ridiculous.
I'm
But it
worried
really
that
is.
Sadiq
But you know
Khan's
what?
watching this now
but
and
this
they've
also
come up with an
feeds in
idea.
for me to this ridiculous notion now that these councils have gone so far beyond their remit. They don't ask people if this is what you want. They don't do the things they're supposed to do, like empty your bins. And,
But it's our fault. We're stupid enough to vote for these idiots, like Sadiq Khan and others. We're stupid enough to
It is.
keep
That's
voting
the
for
problem. They're getting in.
Yeah.
We're actually.
Yeah.
I was going to say nominating them. That's the like good.
I sense a positive
do you?
for any bloke who gets drunk this weekend and they're walking home and they get cut short, if an officer comes up and nicks you, you can just say, I was talking to the fence.
I was talking to the lamppost.
I was having a chat
Now,
with the fence.
this is one for you, Laura. You'll like this. All conversations that take place, according to the council, are anonymous and no personal information is recorded.
Yeah, right.
Are you sure about that?
I would not be talking to an animate object with AI on it. It's also kind of like creepy surveillance, to be honest.
But they also agony lampposts then. You can tell them your problems, can you?
I would imagine so. How about this for the sign-off? Sustainable Dundee is a network bringing together individuals, communities and organisations to tackle the climate and nature emergency in Dundee. If you've ever been to Dundee, there is a climate emergency. It's always bloody raining, right? And it's horrendous. The weather's awful. Half the people that live there have never seen the sun.
I'm going to pick up from Dundee. I think we should just speak to inanimate objects. You're a star. Very Merry Christmas.
Yes.
He's lost it.
You know, he has lost it, yeah. Stay off that snow, for God's sake. Well, I think there's only one winner, and it has to be one of the Michelles.
Yes.
Yes, but not your Michelle. See, that was good, isn't it? It's got to be Michelle Mone.
I got excited.
It's got to be Michelle Mone. Biggest plank. I mean,
has to be.
Yeah.
Here it is, plank of the year, not plank of the year, plank of the week for Christmas. Sorry we didn't have enough money to change it to a Christmas plank. But thank you very much, Amanda, Peter, Laura, Russell. Thank you to all the people behind the scenes for doing all of the hard work that they do, particularly Tim, who's standing in the corner. He's doing more shows this week than I've ever done in a day. I can tell you. This is Plank of the Week. We'll be doing Plank of the Year soon, and hopefully my voice will hold out for that. Up next, it is, of course, the year according to Mike Graham, with myself and Kevin O'Sullivan. Lots more to come. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
It's the world's #1 interview show, the new global home of big debates and big questions.
This is really unfair.
Why?
We'll explain why.
For all the big names.
When I say I am God, I'm not joking.
You're going to resign?
Yeah, because I cannot continue my work.
Did you feel Elvis was a controlling influence on you? And the good news? You've already found it. All new Piers Morgan Uncensored, right here, Monday to Thursday, 8 p.m.
People of Britain, do you fancy a good dose of common sense before bed? Because the independent Republican Mike Graham is now in prime time. We still cover all the stories that matter and put the world to rights. We just do it a little bit later on. So don't miss the independent Republican Mike Graham Monday to Thursday nights at 9 p.m, right after Piers Morgan Uncensored. Yes, the revolution will be televised.